Well, good morning, Manna Church. I'm Jeff Christensen, the site pastor for Manna Church Ramsey Street site, and welcome to a new edition of Morning Manna. So, I'm guessing that if I sat down with any one of you watching this right now, and I asked you your thoughts on the state of the world around us, pretty much every one of us would agree there are some troubles. Even here in our own country and in our own individual lives, we would all say that there are challenges, especially these last few years. Now, it may look different for us than it does in other places. Here in America, we don't generally face daily peril as so many others do in different countries around the world. But nonetheless, we have troubles here as well. And some of those troubles, those challenges, directly confront our faith. Many of us have experienced firsthand that living in this world can make it hard to be a Christian. Jesus told his disciples in John 16:33, "In the world you will have tribulation," or distress. It's a very real thing. But in the epistle to the Hebrews, we're called to persevere through the troubles, to stand fast, which shows the sincerity of our faith. When we stand fast, it makes our faith real, and it makes it obvious that it's real. In Hebrews 10:36, the author tells his readers this. He says, "For you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised." Now, this verse is connected to a larger passage or pericope of Scripture, some of which we're going to focus on this week. But even just in verse 36, on its own, it should encourage us with this thought. If we're instructed by the author of Hebrews to endure, then endurance must be possible. So then the question isn't if we can endure, but rather how do we endure? From where do we draw our strength to persevere? And the answer is, of course, from Jesus himself. Now, there are a lot of verses that we could look at regarding this, but I want to focus on one in particular. It's found right here in Hebrews, where we're going to be focusing this week. It's just a couple chapters ahead. If you'll look with me at chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "Looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God." See, Jesus himself endured the cross. So he knows what it is to endure, to go through hardship, to suffer, to have his very identity as the Son of God tested and challenged, to be shamed for it, and to die a horrible death for righteousness' sake. All of which he did, the verse says, for the joy set before him. The joy of what? It's the joy of saving us from our sin and making us children of God. He endured that to save us, to work in us, have his Spirit indwell us, and thus he is the source of our strength to endure. Now, this week, we'll look at a few passages elsewhere that are going to help us make this case, but we're going to primarily camp here in Hebrews 10, verses 32 through 39. I encourage you to look ahead at these verses for yourself. If you're facing challenges and troubles right now, and I'm sure that in one way or another you are, then take heart. Not only does Hebrews 10:36 tell us that endurance is possible, we find out in the very same book of the Bible that our strength is found in Jesus. I strongly encourage you, begin today to connect deeply with him. Tell him he is your hope, your strength to endure, your source, and trust him to be the perfecter of your faith, as the verse says. It's good to be with you, Manna Church. Come back tomorrow for part 2 of our need for endurance for Morning Manna.